If you want to decarbonize the grid, if you want to advance renewable energies, if you care about the climate, then you should care about the ability for renewable energy to be monetized. Because every kilowatt of renewable energy from a solar plant that doesn't get monetized means that that's less revenue for those renewable energy generators. And so that's less potential investment and also increased risk for those folks that are interested in financing those projects. Bitcoin mining can play a key role in helping us not only to reduce the amount of wasted energy from wind and solar, but also for us to reduce emissions.
Today, we're diving into the world of Bitcoin, as we always do, with Dennis Porter, the CEO of the Satoshi Action Fund. Dennis is driven to educate lawmakers in the US on the benefits of Bitcoin for their state, and has actually already gotten 4 bills passed since the inception of his nonprofit in 2022. In this episode, he reminds us that Bitcoin is poised to revolutionize the future of energy, inviting a potential for the renewable dominant future the world's been fighting for ever since the Al Gore documentary, An Inconvenient Truth. The transition from an oil and gas dominated grid to a renewable and nuclear dominated one will only be possible because Bitcoin miners have simply searched out the cheapest energy on the market and participated in the development of energy assets and grid infrastructure. This is essentially to support there being more cheap energy abundance, meaning more energy to mine with. It seems so simple. Could Bitcoin mining really be the missing link in solving the world's greatest energy challenges? Well, it's not quite that simple, but it is an elegant solution. We'll explore these groundbreaking possibilities and more, including how Bitcoin miners in Texas helped prevent a catastrophic energy failure during a winter storm, and why this technology might be the key to balancing our increasingly volatile climate. Stay tuned and uncover how Bitcoin is becoming more than just internet money. It's a tool for sustainability, energy efficiency, and global change. But before we do that, I want to introduce our sponsors, Stampseed, the Orange Pill app, and Swan. Our partners are businesses and people that we respect, and our products that we at Bit Intelligence personally use. You're watching 21 Voices.
I found Bitcoin in 2017 after a friend of mine told me that it was perfectly anonymous internet money. And I said, that's not possible. Nothing on the internet is perfectly anonymous. Lo and behold, I was right that Bitcoin is not perfectly anonymous. But while I was in there trying to prove my friend wrong, I found a lot of things about Bitcoin that were very appealing to me. The most appealing component of Bitcoin at that time in my life was the fact that it could bank the unbanked. There are 2 billion people globally that are unbanked or underbanked. And that's 2 billion people that we are missing out on their full human potential, right? The next Einstein could be born in Africa, but without a bank account to be able to save for the future, to buy his first textbook, he or she can never realize how much they could add to the world. And so I really see Bitcoin as this tool to be able to provide inclusivity and access to a financial system where individuals across the world can participate. My opinions and views on the technology have really rapidly evolved. There are energy inefficiencies, energy imbalances all over the world, and there really is not very many technologies, if any technologies, that can help us to solve these problems that are inherent in our energy systems. And Bitcoin mining can play a really key and pivotal role in helping us overcome some of the greatest energy challenges that we face today. I would say that one of the big challenges that I'm most focused on with regards to energy and how Bitcoin mining can play a positive role is in the world of renewable energy. I was just speaking to a lawmaker today about this, in fact, how we have so much curtailment from wind and solar. So wind and solar, they're variable renewable energy assets. So they are generating energy when the wind is blowing and when the sun is shining, but they are not generating energy when the wind is not blowing and the sun is not shining. And that's very different from most energy assets. Gas power plants, coal power plants, nuclear, and hydro are considered to be baseload energy assets, which means that they're more or less on demand. When people need energy, those assets can provide energy. That's not true with wind and solar. Let's take solar as a quick example. All throughout the night, there's no way for solar to generate power. And that's a very big problem for those renewable energy assets because they need someone to come in and play a balancing role for them. And oftentimes, in the case of solar, they produce so much energy in the middle of the day when most of us are gone away from our homes. The home is where we use the most amount of energy. Home heating, home cooling, using our appliances, huge energy demands. So the moment solar is creating the most energy, we're all leaving our houses to go to work and leaving our highest energy consumption moments behind. So there's this huge spread of excess energy on the grid, well, that's really bad. If you want to decarbonize the grid, if you want to advance renewable energies, if you care about the climate, then you should care about the ability for renewable energy to be monetized. Because every kilowatt of renewable energy from a solar plant that doesn't get monetized means that that's less revenue for those renewable energy generators. And so that's less potential investment and also increased risk for those folks that are interested in financing those projects. And so the really unique thing that Bitcoin mining can do, which is unique to Bitcoin mining and very little other technologies can pursue this, maybe batteries would be close, is that they can go and co-locate right on site of that wind farm or that solar farm, buying up all the excess generation, but simultaneously they're able to shut down whenever and wherever needed for whatever length of time, so that if there's some other area of the grid that needs energy, if it's during peak demand, that energy can be made available to those that need it the most. Bitcoin mining can play a key role in helping us not only to reduce the amount of wasted energy from wind and solar, but also for us to reduce emissions. And the number one way that it can do that is for it to go and eat up all of the methane emissions that are coming from landfills, from the oil and gas industry, from agriculture. There is so much methane that is produced from these industries. And methane is a powerful greenhouse gas. It's a potent greenhouse gas, up to 28 times worse than carbon dioxide for warming the atmosphere. And so if we can tackle methane emissions, then we can do a very good thing for the environment. In fact, 150 nations have pledged to reduce their methane emissions, and they're trying to pursue new and innovative strategies to help accomplish those goals. And I personally believe that Bitcoin mining can play a key role in mitigating those methane emissions. It can co-locate right next to a landfill. It can absorb all of the methane emissions that are coming, or a vast majority of the methane emissions that are coming from that landfill, and it can use it to power its Bitcoin mining operation. So there's a very specific way that Bitcoin mining can play a role in our energy systems, but also in helping us to overcome some of the greatest environmental problems that we face today. There's abandoned oil and gas wells all over this country, and they're producing methane unmitigated into the atmosphere. So usually anywhere that it's not being consumed, you do want to see it being burnt off. That's a positive thing for the environment, for the climate. With that being said, most of these abandoned oil and gas wells that we see across this country and across the world are venting, so there's no mitigation taking place whatsoever. And so what you can do is you can create policies and incentives that encourage Bitcoin miners to go out and tackle these unmitigated methane sources, ultimately causing a very powerful impact on, reducing the amount of emissions that we're seeing. But if you get enough Bitcoin miners going out and mitigating methane emissions, you could also see the entire Bitcoin network turn carbon negative, which is something that I don't think there's a lot of industries that are carbon neutral, but achieving carbon negativity is something that I think would truly be an incredible accomplishment.
Please bear with us for a quick message from our sponsors. These videos take a lot of time to make, and we've partnered with brands we trust like Stampseed and the Orange Pill app in order to get the funding we need to bring you these videos every week. Don't store your Bitcoin in cold storage without stamping your seed phrase on an indestructible titanium plate. Stampseed is fireproof, rust-proof, impact-proof, and easy to hide. It has no loose parts and will give you ultimate peace of mind that your Bitcoin is safe and sound for the long term. Click the link in the description below for 15% off your stamping kit. When I finally got Bitcoin, it hit me like a lightning bolt. It was the currency of the future, the only money that truly mattered. But there was a problem. I didn't know anyone else that thought like me. That is until I discovered the Orange Pill app. Suddenly, I was connected with a network of like-minded Bitcoin enthusiasts, right in my own city. The Orange Pill app is more than just a social network. It's a community of passionate individuals determined to change the world, one Satoshi at a time. This series is brought to you by Swan and created by Bit Intelligence. Remember to like this video and subscribe to both our channels for more videos like this every week. Thanks for watching.
In Texas, during Winter Storm Uri 2021, it brought the energy system there to its absolute knees. I mean, it was moments away from absolute catastrophe, which would be considered a system-wide outage or a black start. And that is like, I don't think people really understand how difficult it is to recover from a black start or a system-wide outage. It's not a rolling brownout. It's not a rolling blackout. It's all dead. And now we have to go one by one and turn it all back on. So it can take weeks, if not months, to turn that system back on. Now, Texas didn't quite experience that level of a shutdown, but it did experience very significant blackouts across the system, and some of those blackouts persisted. And hundreds of people died. 700 plus people died from that storm. I always tell people, whenever there's a blackout or there's some sort of bad energy imbalance that causes brownouts and blackouts and system-wide outages, best case scenario, the food in your fridge is going bad. Worst case scenario, people are dying. And they did in the case of Winter Storm Uri. Now, transport about 6 to 8 months later, and a really important event occurred, a significant event occurred, and that's that China decided to ban Bitcoin mining. And so all the Bitcoin miners fled out of China and flooded into Texas in a good way. And they plugged into the grid there, and they were able to sign up for a lot of the grid balancing programs and participate in keeping the grid online during peak demand. But just a little bit after that, maybe like 2 to 3 months later, ERCOT, which is the energy grid operator there in Texas, came out with a report that shared how much Bitcoin mining had come onto the grid. At the time, they called it large flexible load. They shared that there was about 1.7 gigawatts of large flexible load on the grid. And then, boom, 2 months later, we ran into another big storm, Winter Storm Elliott. And during Winter Storm Elliott, the energy grid there had additional tools in its toolbox, and one of those was Bitcoin mining. And the Bitcoin miners there on that grid wound down completely during the storm and delivered up to 1.7 gigawatts of that power back to the energy system to make sure that they could keep the grid running. Ultimately, to put it in context, 1.7 gigawatts is enough power to heat 1.7 million small homes, and they did that in the middle of an emergency when everybody else was trying to keep their homes warm, when everybody else was trying to operate their businesses. During that emergency, the miners were the first line of defense to wind down and make their energy available, likely saving lives in the meantime. It's about weather volatility. So anywhere there's weather volatility, which is increasing as the climate gets worse, the more the climate warms, the more weather volatility we have. I think a lot of people love to look at the climate change argument and say like, oh well, the Earth isn't getting that much hotter, but the water is. And anytime the water gets warmer, we see a lot more climate volatility. And so we see climate volatility all over the world. And as you have more climate volatility increase, you're going to need something like Bitcoin mining, which is a flexible load that can help to manage that volatility. There's another area where Bitcoin mining plays a critical role, and that's the ability to balance the heartbeat of the grid. So we often hear about demand response, but we don't hear very much about what I call its little brother, which is frequency response. And frequency response is where you have a deviation in frequency on the grid and you need an asset to respond to that. So here in the US, it's 60 hertz. In Europe, it's 50 hertz. And you need to maintain that frequency at all times. You can have like less than 1% deviations. Otherwise, your grid will start to collapse. And what happens is when you add variable renewable energy assets or intermittent energy assets to the grid, it makes it much more difficult to balance frequency. Typically in the past, frequency was balanced through thermal generation. Thermal generators have a couple of really good attributes that they add to the grid. And thermal generation is anything that creates heat to create steam, to push through a turbine, and that turbine spins and generates electricity. So let's take a nuclear power plant, for instance. Whenever the nuclear power plant goes down, that turbine will sort of keep spinning because of inertia. And the other assets on the grid can almost automatically respond by the change in the frequency. They'll immediately detect that, and then they will sort of open and close a little valve, which allows more or less steam to go in. And so that's like an automatic system that governs frequency. When you take that away, let's say by replacing it with variable renewable energy, there's no object in motion, there's no inertia because there's no thermal turbines that are spinning really, really, really fast. And you create a problem where frequency deviations are more prevalent and they can happen more rapidly. And so what you do is, instead of relying on thermal generation, because what's happening is they're building more thermal generation to supplant the problem that renewables create on the grid, particularly peaker plants. And peaker plants are one of the most costly, most carbon intensive forms of energy generation on the planet. And they also just sit idle, burning fossil fuels, waiting for these moments to happen. Super expensive, super carbon intensive to solve a problem that is new to our grid system, that is new to our energy systems because of variable renewable energy. So what you can do instead is you can have Bitcoin miners come in and play that same exact role where they are able to compensate for the deviations in frequency by making very rapid changes in their energy consumption. And that is not something that really any technologies outside of batteries can help to service. You need really extremely fast responses. You need like fractions of a second. Otherwise, frequency starts to get out of control. So not only can Bitcoin mining help play a role in the supply and demand scenario, but it can also help play a role in frequency as well.
As we've seen today, Bitcoin is more than just a currency. I know, I say this a lot. It's a technology that has literally saved lives by being a large, flexible load, strengthening even the most robust energy grids in the West. It's a lifeline for millions of people and a solution to some of the most pressing energy and environmental issues of our time. Whether it's helping stabilize renewable energy grids or even mitigating harmful methane emissions, Bitcoin's potential to drive positive change is enormous. The implications of this technology stretch far beyond what most of us have ever imagined. The future isn't just about financial freedom. It's about a sustainable, decentralized system that can power our world and reset the perverse incentives of the fiat system. Join us in this next episode as we continue exploring how Bitcoin is shaping the future, one block at a time.